Well, we're in my dining room, and I thank you for all coming into my home. This is the first piece of art that really kind of moved me. I found this in Art Freeze on the wall, and this is a Doug Aiken. So if you come a little closer, you can get a better angle on it. It's very much what it looks like. It's a 3D piece of artwork. It's pressed foam, wood, painted, and mirrored a product. I just loved the movement, the energy of it going forward. I also had put this art light installation in before I even know what piece of art I was putting in here. This is a 2012, and you know, at the time I had an art associate helping me with buying, and it was one of those things that just moved me. I really didn't care if it went up in value or not, and I still love it, and it's hosts over my dining room table. So if you follow me, we'll just go see the next piece of art, which is on this side of the room. This is my latest acquisition, and probably the one I'm most excited about. As I move into this next phase in my life, I'm looking for more color and more excitement. This is a Jean Dubufay, 1985. It's a oil on linen, and it's just this wonderful contemporary master. Again, I'm a huge fan of color, but also strength of its brushstrokes. And I've always been charmed by his imagery and his faces, but the composition as well. So this is a Jean Dubufay, French master. If anyone has been familiar with the show Girls on HBO, Lena Dunham's father is also a very famous artist. His name is Carol Dunham, which is kind of interesting for a man. I had not met many Carols, but this is Carol Dunham, and this is called a pile painting. And it's also oil on linen. Basically, he's known for mostly painting women, but this is a combination, I think, very much of what looks like a melting brain to me. Very sexual in nature by the color and the shapes that if you take a good close look at, you can find certain things within the imagery. But a lot of fun, a lot of color, and I've always enjoyed that piece. So this is the dining room, and I thought we'd go into the kitchen where we would switch off to South Korea to a Korean artist by the name of Chung Se Hua, 2012 piece. Very minimalistic in nature. Chung Se Hua is one of those artists that's meticulous, and if you look at the detail that's in the painting, each one of these squares are actually been pushed through from the back of the canvas forward. It's a very subtle painting, but it has a lot of texture up close, so you get to see how the brushstroke or the pressing through the canvas came through. One of my favorite pieces, again, kind of just meticulous, very painstaking to get the images to look consistently even.
And I love the lighting there too, Mitchell.
Yeah, so this was a piece I had seen in Frieze, which is another art show, if you've heard of Art Basel or Frieze, and it was originally vertically hanging in the showroom, but because I grew up, as I mentioned, with my mother, who was an incredible interior designer, she really got composition, and we didn't have anything here yet, but I said, well, we should hang it certainly, or should I say horizontally rather than vertically, and I think it couldn't be more perfect against this wall, especially with the backdrop of the color. It really helps it pop.
Wonderful. And maybe talk a little bit about Art Freeze and Art Basel and working with art consultants on some or
Sure.
others.
So I started with a different consultant with the few pieces that you had. And again, art consulting is a very interesting job. They're like real estate brokers. They're going to take you around. You're going to see a lot of things you like, a lot of things you don't like. The things you like end up being sold, and you're like, well, why didn't we get there sooner? Or the things you don't like, or they're too expensive. And I found and befriended finally a person I really enjoyed his company, who was also a musician, and we ended up being involved. We went to Miami together, we walked the shows together, and we got to see either things that are available or not available. And so having that consultant also helped a lot, knowing all the galleries that are available. Is it a first market, secondary market? Are we buying directly from a gallery, or are we buying from an individual? Sometimes people go through divorces and they're looking to move artwork, and so there's connections in a community because people know where all the homes of these artworks usually live. And so I found having an art consultant was important. I switched several art consultants because some of them I found to be very obnoxious and snooty, and I just didn't like them. So you have to like who you're working with and trust them too. Sometimes you can be taken advantage of. So it's a very fine line. And finally, you get to know what you like and what you don't like. But that was very helpful. This was an art freeze. The art picture I had was an art freeze as well. But if we could jump to Cuba, I wanted to kind of, like Meg had some pieces in Cuba. I was proud about a couple pieces. It was actually Sandy 2012, and I wasn't supposed to go because I had very young children at the time, but we had power and we had help, and I literally went to Cuba for a day and a half. It was supposed to be a 3-day trip, but it was during the storm, and we got down there, and I went into the way they sell art in Cuba is in private homes, and I got to meet this wonderful person, which I'm just going to, sorry to move so quickly, by the name of Kadir. And this is the Havana Grand Prix, circa 1958. And why I like this piece, this is actually a real piece of steel from a real Esso sign. And what happened when Castro took over in 58, anything Americana, anything related to that, they were to destroy, was the orders. So this was taken down, but yet he's showing all the beautiful clothing that everyone's wearing, the fancy Ferraris, and obviously the opulence right before the revolution, where very soon after, it was completely gone. So it's kind of a play, what I liked on the old and the new. The other piece, which as I got into this thing during the crash of 2008, not trusting anything, and seems were similar in nature, but that was more financials, I found other things. So I actually have a little bit of a wine collection, but I did put in here my other favorite Kadir, and I bought 2 of them. I wasn't sure if they were going to be actually sent up from Cuba, because you never know, and a crate did show up. They're actually my least expensive pieces I have, and still kind of my favorite. So hope everyone has a sweater on. It's a little chilly in here.
Okay, we'll head in with you.
So I'm just highlighting this piece a little bit. This is another Kadir. This is, if you can see, this is a Coca-Cola sign that has bullet holes in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 7 bullet holes. So obviously they wanted to shoot down anything also related. But I thought it was fun. This is the famous gangster Meyer Lansky and his girlfriend as they're leaving the Copacabana in Havana. So I thought it's, again, kind of a fun piece overall, because it was Americana, destroyed and taken down, and then recreated of what it looked like back then, when things were, tourism was still hot and the area was hot.
Wonderful. And was that part, if you're talking about the interior design of your, your space, was this wine cellar there? Did you?
Oh no, this was a washer
develop
dryer room, and we don't really believe in clean clothes. That's why we're in the fragrance business. So we figured we just no. So I moved the washer dryer behind you, but I saw this space and I found this brick, and I've always been a fan of restaurants with these glass. So this was kind of always a dream and a vision. And besides this wonderful tequila, my passion is wine. And I've been collecting ever since I moved in. So it's not a cellar like you can have in a huge home, but considering we're in Manhattan, it's a pretty large piece of real estate for wine.
Wonderful.
So let's, if you follow me, we'll go into the foyer. Since I didn't get to actually officially, welcome you into my home, let's go into the foyer and I'll show you the entrance.
Okay.
So if you were to come in, the first thing you would see when you walked in is this Christian Marcle. Again, this was another one of those art frieze pieces that I really enjoyed. I also grew up with being a Batman fan, so it resonated with me on many, many ways. The words, this spash and this, skvaroom, very much almost taken back to the 1960s and some of the fun that were taking place in other pop art that was happening then. This is a print on what is this, on paper. So this is a print, but I just love the colors. It looks like even for those printers in the audience, like my father, like there's almost halftone dots that are broken in for the actual printing of it.
Yeah, beautiful texture. And I can see, you know, why you selected to have that in the foyer as people come in. I'm sure it's a talking point.
Yeah, and the
you know, when people get up close.
The colors are fun, and it's just kind of happy. And when I walked in, I just wanted, you know, after sometimes walking by the streets of Manhattan or a difficult day, it can be stressful. So that's always nice to kind of walk into.
Well, and Mitchell, before we move on, we've got a question,
Sure.
actually from Meg. So Meg Carter is one of our board members as well, joining in, and she did a curated crib as Mitchell had tuned into hers, and she was wondering, she loved your wine room and was wondering about the light fixture in there.
Yeah,
you don't have to move back to that. Just, you know, she wanted to know a little bit more about that light fixture.
Sure, that's a famous, New York lighting designer, and hand-blown glass, wonderful rope attached to it, all unique, one-of-a-kind fixtures, a wonderful piece, and you know, it's fun in that room for sure. And Edison light bulbs, so you get to see through it, really enjoy the light coming out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So as we walk into the foyer, the next piece is Louis Lawler, who is a student of the great female photographer Cindy Sherman, and this is a CD print mounted to plexiglass, mounted to a museum box. So it's a kind of an interesting piece. She's famous for basically taking photographs of famous pieces of artwork, either people's homes or in museums, and this is prior to an installation. And I also like, if you notice the bottom, the floor is this beautiful walnut floor, and if Amelia would be so kind, she'll shoot down to the floor in my apartment. So it's a very similar texture and color, and it feels like it's actually running off from my floor in the apartment, and that's another reason why I like that. Why don't we see her teacher, which is Cindy.
Cindy Sherman, wonderful.
So we'll walk into the living room. So Cindy's also famous for using her own imagery inside of her portraits, of her pictures. So this is actually Cindy. This was as recent as 2016. Every few years she does her own kind of, she's been especially known for her clowns. If anybody who's followed Cindy, she'll dress up in clown outfits, from big red noses to incredible wigs, incredible outfits. I just loved her because I thought she was so sophisticated. And she's also, the way when you walked into my living room, she's looking this way. So you kind of want to know, well, what's in there as you walk into my apartment? Well, what's she looking at? And I also like that the drapes that she has all behind her, and we'll see a little later, matches the same drapes that I have hanging by my window. So it's a photograph on metal, and it has great reflective quality to it. And I just thought she was very cool. It looks like she has a cat or something also hanging around her neck. I don't know what that is, but it's got a couple of eyes. So, and then what she would usually do is she would hide the aperture or the shutter right in her thumb, and she would take her picture of herself right from below. And so, just a fun piece.
That's fun. And like you said, the eyes, and of course, you know, the curtains that you'll show us later. But I love the gesture in terms of that focus of where the eyes are looking.
Yeah. So she's like, "What's in there?" And I'm like, "I don't know what's in here." So we'll take a look. So this is probably my most valuable piece in the house. This is a Richard Poussette dart. Now, here's one of the most famous artists you've kind of never heard of. The Pace Gallery in New York City has been able to take over his estate and has been working with the family for a bunch of years. His story is he's a 1970s artist. So this is a very thick oil, similar to, I mean, I'd go as far as even some Van Gogh stuff with the thickness of the brush strokes and the way he's thrown it. But from a distance, it looks like it's this almost like 2001 Space Oddity, with the way that this potential image is floating. this is 1978, and he would have been more famous had he gone out to Studio 54 and the clubs, because his contemporaries was Basquiat and Warhol. So this is basically very similar. And if you get in from the side, if we could take a look here, Amelia, you can really get in close and you can see how thick the brushstrokes are, as well as the color. It really is quite a dimensional piece, and the more you see it, but again, very meticulous, and the way that it creates drama and at different angles and spatial relations to the painting, it looks like it's floating. The last piece I wanted to show in here, this is a famous artist who just recently died. His name is John Bolisari. And I also liked it too because the sparkly dress is connecting with Cindy's dress, so they get to have a little conversation here. But it's also two paintings together, and it's called the Nonchalantly Swats a Fly painting. But if for those that are into famous cinema, if anybody wants to read this quickly, I don't know if you can move in a little bit and see that, or can read that. As Lazo leaves Ferrari, nonchalantly swats a fly on the table, dissolves to the figure with a spotted costume. Anybody want to guess what movie that's from?
That one, we got it. Casablanca.
Ferrari. That's again, Laszlo. How many movies have Laszlo? Anyway, so again, one of my favorite movies of all time. So why don't we come into my favorite room in the house? As a musician, which Cindy was talking about, my second producer, his name is Rob Ferboni, and I was grateful enough to work with an individual. He had produced the Winos, Keith Richards, the band, to name a few, and dated Bonnie Raitt for a while. Crazy individual, but he had this vision and built studios. So I said, I want to build this soundproof music room, of which my current band, I've recorded 2 records in this room, everything but drums, vocals, guitar, bass, and I've dropped the ceiling, floating floors, and it's not soundproof, but we've had many opportunities to create a lot of music in there. So why don't you follow me? And I wanted to show you the other thing that I was kind of collecting before I even got into art, which is my instruments.
Right.
They are, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to show you a quick kind of segment. I have about 26. I'll show you 5.
Great, thank you.
So this is my wonder closet, as they would say if I was German, where they would hold their special porcelain things or beer mugs, but I decided to put a bunch of instruments into it. So if you come a little closer, I'll tell you a couple stories quickly, and then we'll move out of here. This is probably my most prized. This is a 1964 Deangelica hollow body. It was made on Kenmore Street here in New York City, and it was owned by one of the most famous Nashville session players by the name of Harold Bradley. Harold was one of the last 6 that Mr. Deangelica built in 1964. If you are familiar with a woman by the name of Patsy Cline, or Roy Orbison, or a little guy by the name of Elvis Presley, this instrument was on all of those. Crazy, Patsy's song. This is an instrument's been on more hits than you can possibly imagine. Love the way it sounds. So the other thing is all these instruments have been on all my records. So it's not that I just buy instruments. Some people collect because they want an Eric Clapton Blackie guitar with a signature, but I am more interested in how it's actually going to sound. A 1958 Stratocaster, 1972 Gibson. This is probably also my most prized collection. This is a 1957 all original gold top Les Paul. So people like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin use this on recording some of the most famous rock and roll albums of all time. I was with my sister, I think, who's also on the call. Hi, Vivi. This is, my nephew went to Vanderbilt Law School, so I actually bought this at Gruen Guitars, and we spent hours together, and she loved this matching headstock, white top and bottom. So this is a 1966 jazz guitar, which has been on all my records. And this is the only other famous owner I have, Marcus Miller, who's played with Miles Davis, David Sanborn, Luther Vandross. There's too many people to name. This was his bass, and I just used it on a couple of my recent tracks, like You Should Be Dancing and a few other things. Just love the way it sounds. And lastly, probably my oldest guitar. This is a 1953 Blackguard Telecaster, And this is only 384. This is, the number on this is 384. So Leo Fender was one of the most famous guitar builders in America. The rest of them are all just great basses, amazing basses, and I pretty much, believe it or not, have used pretty much all of them and all the time. So that's my that's
kind of a special extra treat for everybody to be able to walk into, your music, space. And what are you working on now, Mitchell? I know, could it be dancing?
Yeah, so I have a single out called "You Should Be Dancing" with my cover band called Ultrasound. And if you follow me on theyoungpresidents.com or on Instagram, The Young Presidents, all one word, you'll see videos and creativity. We did 3 videos during COVID, all of which we would share our songs with, send them to an editor. He would then edit them. Same thing with the videos. We videotape everything. Amelia, who's been incredibly kind and being steady cam through all this, did all the video work of me running around the beach in a Tom Ford tuxedo. So that was a lot of fun. And we created something that I hope made people smile, because we need a lot more smiling these days. So 2 more pieces in here, actually 4 more. This is also I wanted to make sure I rounded out my collection. So the other issue is, you got into a point of, I wanted more photography. So Lewis Lawler, Lawrence Beck was my original one that you guys have, the Cindy Sherman, and Nan Golden took this photograph. This is from the Isle of Capri on top of the hill at sunset. She also did these unique things where everything is kind of slightly blurred or out of focus. But what I look at more is it reminds me of a woman lying on her side with her hip as she's maybe enjoying also this wonderful view of the sunset over the Isle of Capri in Italy. This is 2008 on Nan Golden. So again, this is the wall that I was talking about and helped design this incredibly kind of cocooned room. And this was Rob Faboni who helped me put this together, but this is quite an undertaking. The lights were all my idea since we dropped the ceiling. I said, why don't we take advantage of that, create some drama. It's also just, just fun to be playing in here with the lights and lowering it down. If you ask me probably what my favorite piece in my collection is, I'm a huge Japanese fan. I love Japanese food. I love Japanese culture. I love Japanese technology and the way that they kind of, their values. They're peculiar from a cultural standpoint, but the meticulousness of Kusama's work. This is a 1989 oil on canvas, and it's called an Infinity Nets. And this is the piece, incredibly rich colors still to this day. She put herself into an insane asylum years ago, and her dotted paintings are what she's most famous for. But I got the opportunity to get this. The only thing I did is I reframed it and put kind of more of a steel floating frame around it. It had wood, but I thought it's such a contemporary piece that the steel might bring it out. But I know my nephew Dan, it's his favorite in my collection. And it was hidden in my bedroom because on a weird wall, but against this wall and now this new light that I got, I feel it's getting a lot of love in here. So I love Kusama.
Yeah, wonderful.
I took you into the closet. I'm going to take you into the bathroom. Nothing bad's going to happen in here, but I wanted to show you a couple of the first pieces I ever got and how I started. So if you follow me into the bathroom. So this is an Enoch Perez. This is a watercolor on handmade paper. This is what I do for a living. I make mass pieces of artwork for the cosmetic industry. These are called folding cartons. And as we talked about earlier, fragrances. It's a French product. We actually produced this years ago. This could have been potentially embossed or hot stamped, but I love the way that it also melted down. And the challenge with watercolors is with bright light in any sort of area is it fades. So I'm in a dark bathroom, and I think it's going to last many, many years in here. It's probably too big for the bathroom, but I still love the fact that it's one of my first pieces. Enoch also did a lot of Don Quixote whiskey bottles, and he got most famous for producing imageries of buildings in New York City, specifically the Seagram's building, which is one of the most famous. So this is an Enoch Perez, and this was probably the first or second piece I ever owned.
And what
One more
time
piece.
frame? What time frame was that you started your
This- when I-
collection?
When I started collecting, this was 2006.
Okay.
So yeah, that's when I. So it was kind of a few years before everything went to hell. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And someone else had. It was Mitchell Innes Gallery, and someone else had put it on hold. And I said, I don't care. I told the guy, I want this, and he said, okay. So who knows if it was a salesman just, doing it, but I didn't care. I love the fact that, this is what I do for a living, and someone decided that they wanted to make a piece of art out of it, because I consider what I do every day making mass pieces of art.
Yeah.
So this last piece is kind of awkward to get to, so I'm going to walk over here. It's by an artist by the name of Jim Lambie, and it's a mixed medium. This I also got at Art Freeze a couple of years ago. I originally wanted the Mick Jagger one. This happens to be David Bowie, and it's very hard to tell because he's mostly covered with flowers. So let's take a quick look at him.
Okay.
So rather than looking at me, why don't you come on in, Amelia, and we'll take a close look. What's nice about the piece, first of all, it's David Bowie, and it's called Space Oddity. And a lot of out of focus, so it's a print, and then it's also oil with a collage of flowers over him. So you can actually see 3D, like the flowers were placed on top of the print of David Bowie. And I just, he's always been feminine as a man, so it almost looks like it's a woman anyway. But I love that piece. And again, the only challenges with collecting art is you run out of space to put things. You have to end up putting them in storage, or, having an opportunity to donate them to the museum.
Correct.
But that's Jim Lambie. So follow me, we'll go in the other room.
Wonderful. And Mitchell, we had a request too that they'd love to see a link to your music recording, so we'll be able to share that and send that out.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I recorded with the Young Presidents from 2011 through basically 2019. So almost a 10-year run, 5 albums and 2 EPs. And my last single, Hurricane, just dropped on Amazon on Tuesday. So that's a double EP, and that comes out in September. So, at the end of the day, it's just being creative is what I also try to bring to work, because all this other stuff inspires ideas in a very creative business as we are in, which is the cosmetics, health and beauty areas. I feel it doesn't matter if it's print, visual, sound, wherever you can find inspiration is great. So we're going to go down the hallway leading to the last couple of pieces I have. And these are 3 Kasama Prints that I got. Her value's gone up tremendously. So I was just excited that I was able to get some. These are litho prints, etched, screen printed, and embossed on handmade paper. So this is the Magical Weekend by Kusama. Again, I love the playfulness. I love the color. I love the sense of community. And, as we were saying, kind of even in the last pop art show, one of the discussions I had is that there was a lot of lithos there. So this is screen printed, stenciled and embossed. And if you look in closely, you can really see the handmade paper. It's just beautiful with Japanese writing in there.
Yeah, beautiful.
This is 2012. I bought 3 out of the series. So this is one called Girls. And again, I just love the color, very whimsical, beautiful imagery, and just overall happy. So that's what I feel when I look at these pieces. And this last one is called The Sunset. And again, trying to also come up with the middle one, which was the girls, being larger than the 2 ones on the side. I also had these framed here in New York City by just a wonderful framer, but great colors.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Kasama.
Wonderful. I love how you put that in the hallway with the 3 together.
Yeah. So this is a wonderful story. This is a Tony Craig. This is a stainless steel symmetry statue. I first fell in love. Again, I got very lucky at Frieze. Sometimes I would go to Basel a lot, and everything sold out. So one of my questions I had to my art consultant at the time is, you know, why are you showing me stuff that's constantly sold or sold out? One of them was a Tony Craig. So he went to Basel without me even having an opportunity to see it, but he sent me a picture and he says, he's like, I'm holding everyone back. I got 6 people that got bids on this. I'm like, done. I love it. Buy it. So he sent me an image. So again, like I didn't mention, but the Dubufay was the same thing. I bought that right at Basel this year. I couldn't make it, but I trusted the individual, and he sent me the imagery. And he had a husband and wife that were buying it, and they're like, well, they put it on hold. I'm like, but are they ready to send you a wire tomorrow? And he said, no. I said, well, then you tell them that's, so we gave them one more chance, and they didn't. But the art world can be fanatically insane with purchases because people get emotional, or, you know, they put their foot down or they step back. It's like really buying a home almost in a way many times. So anyway, Tony was all over Park Avenue last year, so I felt also good about the purchase. So up and down Park Avenue, every other block from the 65th Street all the way down to 49th Street was these statues, much bigger, grander in scale. And I ended up building this wooden piece to hold it, and then painting the back wall and putting these 2 lights in above it just to create drama. And I think without it, it would not sparkle, no pun intended, really as much if I hadn't. But just a big fan of his work.
That's gorgeous. And that installation, like you said, with the back, the lights and the color choice, as well as the pedestal, highlights that even more.
So I wanted to show, when you grow up with art, as I mentioned, with my mother and my grandmother and my dad, one of the things is you just kind of see it. So we're gonna go to my son's Max room, and where the Christian Marcle was in the front entrance was this Aaron Young, which I'm going to show you in a second. And I was ready to put it in storage or maybe sell it. And he's like, that would look great over my bed. So let's go into Max's room and see if he's right. So this is a 19-year-old's room right now who's off to college. And I've taken it over and made it into a gym, so to forgive some of the equipment and things. But this is an Aaron Young from 2007, and what I loved and I thought was really fun about this is aluminum with burnt rubber. And as Amelia goes in and gets a closer shot at it, what you're really seeing here, these are all tire tracks. So it's performance art, and there's some great videos online for Aaron. And what you see him doing is literally burning rubber over as they're screwed into the ground, and it's part of the art. And it's kind of I just thought it was unique and interesting, and I also like the images itself. I thought it was very cool. But that's aluminum with burnt motorcycle rubber tracks over it.
And that performance, Mitchell, the performance art, does Aaron Young do that somewhere particular? Or, is it, in his space, or is it for public as they're watching?
Oh, no, you would have a crowd, a group around, so people would watch, and it'd be like, and then those pieces would eventually be sold. But I think it was kind of like a real performer. So he would, I could pull the book out later to show a few pictures, but it's a dirt bike and big noise grinding out the motor, and then just squealing over the painting. So it's just crazy, but it's again just another medium, another thing to look at.
We have another question from the audience: is who is your favorite contemporary female artist? As we go to the next space.
Well, I'm just a Cindy Sherman fan. I would love to own more of her work. So I would say Cindy.
Good. And we have a Cindy Sherman that will be coming up in our exhibition. It won't be open until next July, but we're working with the Whitney Museum, and we'll be showing vantage points and photography of their collection.
Great. There's one last piece since we're in the room. I might as well just show it. I wasn't going to show it, but this is Keith Meyerson, and he did a lot of pieces around art and contemporary art that was out there. This is a famous Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child oil on canvas. It was also one of the first paintings I ever got. This light I actually bought in New Orleans. This is a real trumpet with a very cool Edison bulb, but he distorts their faces. So that's kind of his signature. Like everything else is very similar to Jimi. Actually, here's actually a picture of the original kind of Voodoo Child, outfit, and very colorful person himself. So anyway, Max is a guitarist and a singer too, so I figured he should have that as well.
That's great. It works well in the room.
Yeah. So the last piece we have is a David Sally. So that's in my bedroom. So, oh yeah, and I just figured I'd show that too. Obviously, for those people in Roanoke, a little familiar, that was a letterpress done on canvas by a gentleman named John, who used to have a print shop right next to the Talbot Museum, but has unfortunately since closed. I believe it's a barber shop now.
That is correct. John Rayburn, and we've worked, he's been a friend of the museum for many years, that we've worked with him personally, also giving classes. So great.
Yeah. So we'll go into my bedroom and show the last piece, and then we'll see what other questions we have.
Wonderful.
So this is a David Sally, and you'd also had a few of the David Sallys, I believe, at the museum. What this is called Structure. It's an image of a female. She seems bored or daydreaming about tables. This seems to be on her mind, her tables. But I love the color. I love the lines. Oil on canvas again. And I just enjoy the piece. So this is a 2006. We're in here, so I might as well show the last piece that's in my bedroom. This is a Matthias Schmid. This is also one of the original pieces that I bought along with the Daniel Hessedins. And from a distance, you can really get the flavor for it. It is a skull, but if you come up closer, which you really will in a minute, it's hard to tell that it is. And it's watercolor on very thin pieces of paper that are then pinned to the actual back, so it's floating off of the backboard. And I just always thought it was an approachable skull and a beautiful skull versus something that was scary or ugly. And I just thought it also fit perfectly on the wall. So that's the other thing about art, is where it goes, how it hangs, and where you get the most out of it. I think the challenge sometimes is, like as I said, that Kusama was in my bedroom with not enough light on a very big wall, where now it really is showcased beautifully.
Wonderful. And especially that piece, you need depth in order to appreciate it as you continue to get further and closer.
Yeah.
Wonderful placement, yeah.
Yeah.